Oh, it's not a game, sweetheart, and I mean that most sincerely. Here we are, second half. The Zygon Inversion, home of an epic speech from the 12th Doctor, but doesn't have much else going on. Some, a little. It's not as good as I remember it. I think largely just because I remember that speech, and that speech is aces. But the rest of the episode is fine. It's okay. It's better than the last one. It doesn't have the same massive glaring, makes me want to just pull on my hair kind of issues or scenes that were as painful as some of the ones in the Zygon Invasion were. So it's better. It is a step up. It's just not the massive leap I think I had really wanted it to be. Except for that one speech. But we will get there. So at the front end, we've got Clara in this sort of dreamscape, which is actually very cool and very well realized, I think, because it touches on the sorts of things that you get in dreams, like looking at a digital clock and like it reads wrong and backwards, because that's the kind of thing that just looks wrong in a dream. Or, you know, toothpaste is the wrong color, you know, these little things throwing it off. I like that they don't tease that out for too long. I mean, there was no point. We knew she was in the pod or whatever. I just think it's well visualized and well realized, this sort of putting her in what would mentally be a fairly cozy place, i.e. her apartment, but there's a bunch of subtly wrong things with it, and plus through the TV she can kind of communicate. Now, speaking of the communication and what goes on between her and Bonnie, I'm a little bit torn. On the one hand, I like the idea that Clara can kind of get in on almost involuntary things, you know, things that are so quick, the sorts of things that, you know, could be almost unconscious or subconscious, things like winking, or, you know, a very simple text, you know, with the hand while Bonnie's just walking along. I do kind of like that. Here's an aspect of it I don't like, though, and I think I still would have, but I will admit I might not have singled this out as being a problem were it not for stuff that goes on later with Clara in this series. And that is, we don't get an explanation as to why she's able to exert as much direct influence on Bonnie as she does. To the point at one point when Bonnie's interrogating her, forcing her to change back into a Zygon for a hot minute. And that degree never gets an explanation. And because there isn't even a token explanation that I caught as to why Clara is able to be this directly mentally confrontational towards the Zygon, and we've never seen evidence of that happening ever before, well then it seems to happen basically just because Clara's the best. She's amazing. Why can she do this? She just can, because she's Clara. Yeah. Like, I wouldn't like that regardless, but knowing things that go on later and feeling that some of the reason that Moffat felt justified in doing some of the stuff that comes later seems to be rooted in this idea of Clara is the best. This feels like the sort of thing that is artificially pumping up her value and her uniqueness and her specialness. Not just to the Doctor, because every companion should be special to the Doctor they are traveling with, but just like as a person. She can just fight back harder and with more impact than we have ever seen happen before. Because that's not being extra special to the Doctor. That's being the most extra special thing in the friggin' universe. And no. Look, when we get to the speech, I am going to gush a little bit. So I'm trying to get most of my issues that I have with this thing out of the way at the front end here. So the fact that Kate turned out not to be a Zygon, in fact, was Kate, and that she survived, that's not a big surprise. However, what's really dumb and lame is that they treat it like a big surprise reveal as to how did she survive? She survived by having a gun and apparently being confronted by a Zygon so slow that she had time to unholster her sidearm, point it, and fire it 5 times before the Zygon that was prepared to take her out at any moment could get a hit off. Ugh. Like, I like that Kate survived. I like Kate, but that's... What's the big tactical trick? She used the gun she brought. Wow. I don't even have a problem with that's how she got away. It's just treated like a reveal, and that's a reveal of, well, duh. What else was she gonna do? Okay, here's a good thing. Here's something I do like. I really do like the interactions between the Doctor and Osgood. And I like that she's got his number. Like, more than possibly anybody who hasn't actually traveled with the Doctor ever has his number. And I enjoy that, and it makes their interactions a lot of fun. In a way, it almost kind of creates an argument in and of itself as to why she should never be an ongoing companion, because she already knows the Doctor so well, you would lose that element of the companion learning about and discovering and getting to know the Doctor. She already knows the Doctor super well. You can still get something out of it, but like, it's a dynamic I like seeing as a one-off or an occasional. I wouldn't want that necessarily to be the regular interactions from the get-go for a companion, but it is a lot of fun here. Minor point, and maybe if I wasn't gender fluid and embroiled and more keenly aware of trans issues than I would have been at the time this aired, maybe this wouldn't bother me, but why does the Doctor keep calling her Zygella?
These things have happened, Zygella. They are facts.
Like, there isn't really a reason given for that. I mean, maybe it's to antagonize her, but why? He shouldn't want to antagonize her. Actually, for the most part, he doesn't seem to want to, except for where he's trying to prod her and get her to think. But ticking her off over calling her the wrong name doesn't do that. It just seems dickish. She told you her name. She told you her identity, and you're ignoring it to call her what sounds like a speciest slur. I don't know why that's there. And I'm sure I just triggered everyone who's going to go, you total SJW, only you people will complain about that. Okay, fine, but why is it there then? If that's the only reason it bothers me, I'd still like an explanation as to why it happens. Have you got one? I don't. Coming back to some idiocy, so the Osgoods can get to the Osgood box. Makes sense. The Doctor can get to the Osgood box. Makes total sense. Clara can get to it. Yeah, okay, yeah, fine. How does she get to it? It scans her body print. I'm sorry, what? In a situation that involves shapeshifters, the way she gets access is by body print, by looking a certain way. You have shapeshifters. Their entire thing is adopting someone else's body print. How is that a security measure? Oh, and one other dumb thing. The Zygon who Bonnie forced to turn back into alien form and took the video of is hiding like not even a block from where the footage was taken. Now look, I'll buy that nobody that lives there cares, because that kind of got established where nobody in this estate is fazed by anything. They watch this thing transform and run off and they just kind of sit there. But the video went viral. You're telling me that no authorities went out here, because if they did, they would have looked in a wide, they would have done a search in enough space to have found him. So this video went viral, is being reported on the news, and no authority figures showed up to this guy hiding 2 buildings down. Really? Okay. So, let's get to the speech. This speech is great not only because of Capaldi's delivery of it, and he delivers it like a boss. He has so much to do here. He has so many things to convey and so many modes to switch in and out of. And that's a big thing for me. I love that he turns on a dime into something that makes sense for the tactic he's trying to use to get Bonnie to change her mind about what she's trying to do. I love all of that. So, like, he starts out kind of flippant with this American game show host voice kind of thing.
And we're off, fingers on buzzers. Are you feeling lucky? Are you ready to play the game?
Until it gets really serious and he just looks Kate in the eye and goes,
Because it's not a game, Kate. This is a scale model of war.
like, that's great. And talking to Bonnie being dismissive, like in the way a parent would be.
We've been treated like cattle.
So what?
We've been left to fend for ourselves.
So's everyone.
It's not fair.
Oh, it's not fair.
It's forcing her to, or trying to force her to confront how petty she's being. And he's really accurate when he calls her a tantrumy child. And that is done really well, those shifts in tone, and when he gets more serious, and when he backs off a little bit, when he gets hopeful.
Because I want to get you to see, and I'm almost there.
The give and take and flow of it is great. Now, I did mention in my greatest Doctor Who speeches video that I do think it goes on a little too long. I think it's just when he gets shouty at the end.
This is not a war. I fought in a bigger war than you will ever know. I did worse things than you could ever imagine. And when I close my eyes,
like, it gets dialed up to 11, and it probably should have stayed at 10. But that doesn't kill it. It totally works. And the thing is, this whole interaction comes back to what I said last time. Understanding radicalization, understanding what it is she wants to accomplish and why it is so hard to pull people back. Because she has made decisions to do things and to try and force others like her to either be like her or to make the world hate them as much as it hates her, so that they will feel they have to do what she wants them to do. And that is such a base level tactic of radicalization. Part of it is that you actually make the rest of the world see you in the worst possible light, so that they come at you as a group. And then you can radicalize the other members of your group who aren't that far along yet, who aren't at that radical end. But you spur on a reaction from the majority who clamps down. And they clamp down on everybody, not just the radicals. Everyone in that group. And then, you know what? It becomes a lot easier to get people to go, oh, you know what? You're right. We do have to fight back. We have to make and wage war. They've driven us to it. When in reality, the reality is super more complicated than this. But this faction within is deliberately trying to push things harsher. They want a harsh reaction so that they can garner more support within their community. And like I said, this may have been intended originally for Muslim radicalization, but I think it actually maps on very well to online radicalization. You know, and the rise of a lot of stuff. A lot of very unpleasant stuff that has gone on in the years since this originally aired. I think it tracks for that kind of radicalization as well. And it shows a very strong understanding, and especially, and this is why it's so hard for some people to get out. The doctor says, look, just stop. Just don't do it.
I started it. I will not stop it. You think they'll let me go after what I've done?
Because that's a big thing. If you can get people to if you can push them enough, then they will believe, and they may even be right, but they will believe that, well, I can't go back. The other side will not accept me after the things I've already done, so I might as well keep pushing forward the way I'm already going. And that's what lends so much power to the doctor saying,
well, here's the unforeseeable. I forgive you after all you've done.
That moment has a lot of power, and this is why, because it disarms the self-defense mechanism of people who radicalize. And because a big part of justifying to yourself is believing that you can't go back. So that even if you start to question the morality or the value of what it is you're doing, you look at what you've already done and go, well, I can't, they'll never take me back. I have no choice. I have to go deeper. I have to go harder. No, you don't. And that's what the Doctor is speaking towards. And it's great. It's phenomenal. And rather undercut by a somewhat tossed off line at the end, which I've never liked, and on rewatch I actually kind of hate. And it's at the very end, after the speech, after everyone has stood down, and it gets established that there's nothing in the boxes, it's just buttons. And then, Kate says, well, it won't work anymore because now we know. And the Doctor says, well, you've said that the last 15 times, and wipes her memory. I don't have a problem with the fact that he wiped her memory to reset it. I have a problem with the last 15 times line. You're telling me that 15 times things got bad enough that we showed up in this room. That to me says that whatever it was that was worked out needs to be worked out again, because it keeps failing over and over and over again the same way. And in this case, I mean, who knows if it was as bad as this one each time, but in this instance, at the very least, people have died. Dozens of people and Zygons that we know of have died. Find a different system. I mean, maybe it wasn't this bad every time, because maybe if both Osgoods were around, they were the ones managing it instead of the Doctor. But 15 times, things got so bad that Kate and some Zygon, maybe Bonnie, maybe another one, were prepared to try and wipe out a ton of people and risk wiping out their own people. And you're just gonna keep that system in place. Look, obviously if it succeeds 15 times, that fail-safe is pretty solid, but work on everything up to that point so that we don't keep getting to this fail-safe where people have died. Oy. That really ticks me off, because it does take the wind out of a phenomenal speech at the end. The two Osgoods, I covered that last time. And one other thing that bugs me. The Doctor saying that what stopped Bonnie was that Clara Oswald got in her head. And making the comparison to when he almost used the moment in The Day of the Doctor. Said, there was a box. And it would have wiped out my own people. And I almost pressed it, but the same thing that stopped you stopped me. And that was Clara Oswald got in my head. That, again, like the Clara being able to sort of fight back, that bothers me in context of this series as a whole. Because it's putting, again, this big underline under how special Clara is. And it's not an inaccurate description. She did stop him, but that's the role of the companion. That would have been the role of any companion in that situation. No matter who the companion was in the Day of the Doctor, it would have been the companion's job to stop the Doctor from doing that. It just happened to be Clara. But we're putting this massive emphasis under Clara specifically. Not just the companion, not just the person in that role, not other people who have been there for the Doctor. This one specifically. And again, while not inaccurate, it's one more little grain of rice on the scale. For some reason, Mulan's on my mind. A single grain of rice can tip the scale. I don't know why. But it's just one more grain of rice on the scale that is saying Clara is the most awesome and fantastic and spectacular companion in the history of the entire franchise. And I hate that. It's not the most glaring instant of it, but that coupled with her fighting back for no adequately explained reason, and this, it is one more contributing instance of it. And knowing what all these things are going to add up to in Hellbent and how much I hate that, it's just jumping out at me more. And it's a shame. Because that speech, though. Oh, man. Zygon Inversion. You rewatched it lately? What'd you think about it? Whatever your thoughts are, drop something down in the comments and let's talk about it. I've got a Patreon. Keeps these lights on and keeps the whole thing going right now. And if you are unable to assist me in that way, there is also the usual stuff. Like, share, subscribe, and hit the bell, all that sort of things. They all help me out, but no pressure. Because at the end of the day, you are the council. I just run the meetings. And until next time, this council is adjourned.